Smith Coach of the Year, and UCLA center Lauren Betts was voted Defensive Player of the Year. Watkins is a finalist for the Wooden Award, which also goes to the nation's top college basketball player. The sophomore from Compton led USC to a 30-3 season before suffering a knee injury in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Watkins finished the season averaging 23.9 points, 6.8 rebounds, and 3.4 assists. Close, in her 14th season at UCLA, led the Bruins to a 34-2 record and their first Final Four. Betts, a 6'7 junior from Centennial, Colorado, ranks 5th in the nation in block shots. She has 18 in the Bruins' last 5 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Freak out. You freak, say she. Freak out. Freak out. You freak, say she. Freak out. Have you heard about the new dance craze? Listen to us, I'm sure you'll be amazed. Big fun to be had by everyone. It's up to you, surely can be done. Young and old are doing it, I'm told. Just one try, and you too will be sold. It's called a freak, they're doing it night and day. Allow us, we'll show you the way. Freak out, you freak, say she. Freak out. All that pressure.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. Delighted to have you with us in this hour. That first hour was straight fire. I mean, just straight heat stones. Just heat stones everywhere in that first hour. Nobody like Michael Eric Dyson. And I hope you enjoyed that. Well, I can tell you enjoyed that. I see all your comments everywhere. And his commentary about Obama at the end, Lord Jesus, wait till we put that clip out. I was just talking to my producers. When that clip drops, it's going to be fascinating to see the kind of response it gets when we push it out. And it's going to be fascinating to see how Barack Obama responds to this story that's out today, this new book from these NBC reporters, that he was working assiduously and aggressively behind the scenes to ensure that Kamala Harris was not going to be the nominee. He worked behind the scenes to make sure that Joe Biden got pushed out, and was working again quite seriously to ensure that Kamala Harris would not be the nominee. Didn't think she could win, did not want to support her, wanted an open primary. This new book is the talk of Washington. It's called Fight: Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. Once again, it's called Fight: Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. We'll try to get the authors on the program. But you can Google that book right now and start to read about the claims that the authors make in this book, given the research they did for their text. The fire continues. Delighted to have back on this program Bhaskar Sankara, president of The Nation magazine and founding editor of Jacobin magazine, will get his thoughts in this hour on a number of trending topics, including the ones I just referenced a moment ago. Also, I want to get his take on Cory Booker's record-breaking progressive, underline that word, progressive filibuster versus his more centrist, underline that word, voting record. Bhaskar Sankara, good to have you back on, my friend. How are you, sir?
I'm great, but you have me following Michael Eric Dyson. This is going to be tough. I'm in the middle of your show, right? This is hour 2 or 3. So,
that's right.
I'm like, in baseball, I'd be a, middle reliever, an innings eater or something.
Well, consider this: you're following Michael Eric Dyson, but you're the opening act for Sarah Randolph Collins, who survived the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. We'll have her on in our third hour, and so I can't wait for that hour with Paul Kicks, the author of a book called You Have to Be Prepared to Die Before You Can Begin to Live, 10 Weeks in Birmingham That Changed America. We'll talk to him and be joined, as I said, by Sarah Collins Rudolph. Her sister, Addie Mae Collins, her oldest sister, died. She was one of the 4 little girls who died in that church bombing. But Sarah Collins Rudolph survived, was in the hospital for some days. But she survived that bombing, and we'll be joined by her in our third hour. We're doing all this because tomorrow, as you well know, is the 57th anniversary, the commemoration of Dr. King's assassination. For those who may have missed the first hour, I want to play this clip because I am particularly interested in getting Bhaskar's response. You heard Michael Eric Dyson's response in the first hour, if you were listening. But Bhaskar has a different approach to this. As president of The Nation, founding editor of Jacobin, as I said earlier, this really is inside his wheelhouse. And so I want to play this clip once again. It's a powerful clip. And again, if you've never heard King Beyond I Have a Dream, brace yourself for what you're about to hear, and then we'll let Bhaskar Sankara respond to it. All right, Miles. I'm looking at my clock. That's not going to work. I got only 45 seconds. So let me do this. When we come forward, I will play that clip for you. I will let Bhaskar respond to that and some other stories at this hour. As I mentioned earlier, in case you've just tuned in, Eric Adams has just announced he's running as an independent in the mayor's race in New York, saying he'll remain a Democrat, but he's running as an independent after that a judge yesterday dropped all these charges against him, and the charges cannot be brought again. Eric Adams, as you heard, was a guest on this program on Mondays. We talked to Eric Adams early this week. What a week for him at his been. The charges are dropped, and now he's dropping the Democratic Party, at least in this race, and running as an independent. A lot to talk about with Bhaskar Sankara in this hour when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. Think about your mentors and idols, the people who inspire you the most. While it may look like they have all the answers, they don't. But they do know when to ask questions and seek the support they need. In a world that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better with a support system. Therapy is a great way to find a consistent source of support in your life, so you can break free from the outdated belief that seeking help is a sign of weakness. BetterHelp has experienced therapists ready to help you with challenges ranging from anxiety and depression to relationships and stress. It's convenient, too. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. You can even send your therapist a message anytime something comes up. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/ABCRadio today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/ABCRadio.
The revolution will not be televised.
What's up? It is Killer Mike, also known as Michael Render, and I'm encouraging you to listen to more, not less, of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Senator Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
At Exquisite Family Mortuary, We know how overwhelming it can be planning a meaningful farewell for your loved one. Secure your peace of mind by calling Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. From traditional funeral services to memorials to direct cremation, pre-needs, and more. Call Charlotte White at Exquisite Family Mortuary for Southern hospitality in Southern California. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. Exquisite Family Mortuary is located nearby in Inglewood, California. Exquisite Family Mortuary, where your loved one becomes our loved one. Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with the Bhaskar Sankara, who is the president of The Nation magazine and founding editor of Jacobin magazine. All right, Miles Lowe, I want to hear this clip of Dr. King. If you were around the first hour, you heard it. If you didn't, lucky for you, you get to hear it now. This is not the King of 63, and I have a dream. Take a listen.
There are 40 million poor people here. And one day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? And when you begin to ask that question, you're raising a question about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. And I'm simply saying that more and more, we've got to begin to ask questions about the whole society. We are called upon to help the discouraged beggars in life's marketplace. But one day we must come to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. You see, my friends, when you deal with this, you begin to ask the question, who owns the oil? You began to ask the question, who owns the iron ore? Now, don't think you have me in a bind today. I'm not talking about communism. What I'm talking about is far beyond communism. My inspiration didn't come from Karl Marx. My inspiration didn't come from Engels. My inspiration didn't come from Trotsky. My inspiration didn't come from Lenin. Yes, I read Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital a long time ago. And I saw that maybe Marx didn't follow Hegel enough. He took his dialectics, but he left out his idealism and his spiritualism, and he went over to a German philosopher by the name of Feuerbach and took his materialism and made it into a system that he called dialectical materialism. I have to reject that. What I'm saying to you this morning, communism forgets that life is individual. Capitalism forgets that life is social. And the kingdom of brotherhood is found neither in the thesis of communism nor the antithesis of capitalism, but in a higher synthesis. It's found in a higher synthesis. Now, when I say question in the whole society, it means ultimately coming to see that the problem of racism, the problem of economic exploitation, and the problem of war are all tied together.
Bhaskar Sankara, there is so much in there, so much in there. Michael Eric Dyson had his say about it in the first hour. Again, we are on the eve of what would be the 57th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King tomorrow, April 4. I don't need to color this first question any more than this. What do you hear in there?
Well, you know, I've heard clips of that, but nothing that long from that speech, and I think it's the best articulation I've heard by an American of Christian socialism. That's basically what he's saying. You know, he's saying that, you know, when you ask that question, you know, about why are there 40 million poor people in the United States, you have to question the whole of the capitalistic system. But then he differentiates himself from forms of authoritarian collectivism. You know, I'm a democratic socialist, but I'm from the Marxist tradition, so I would quibble a little bit with Dr. King in what he says about Marx, but I think he absolutely articulates a very sophisticated view, and you know, it's something that continued throughout his later years. I mean, we shouldn't even draw a huge dichotomy. In 1963 and 1964, you know, in his speeches, he's talking about the need for both jobs and freedom. Mm-hmm. You know, he has lines. You know, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but he had a line that says that he knows that it's not enough to integrate the lunch counter, because he says, why does it matter if you consider an integrated lunch counter if you don't earn enough money to buy a hamburger and a cup of coffee there?
That's right.
So he always had this wedding of fighting against Jim Crow, fighting for real equality, but for him, equality wasn't just the legalistic equality, even though obviously that's important. It was also fighting for this equality of opportunity and this base level of success. And this is the check that America owes Black Americans, and it owes everyone. I think this sort of universalist Christian socialism was found its best ambassador in the United States in Dr. King. So it is really incredible and really important to remember him that way.
Before I move on to Cory Booker, Barack Obama, and some other topics I want to cover with you in this hour, I had my producers pull the data for me. I wanted to make sure I had it right. I figured I was pretty close, and I was pretty close. You hear King in that clip talking about 40 million people living in poverty. That speech is in 1967, August of 67. King is talking about 40 million people living in poverty. In 2023, that's King in 67. Listen, y'all. In 2023, the U.S. Census Bureau reported that 36.8 million people, or 11.1% of our population, live in poverty. 36.8, that's close enough to 40 million for me. It's a rounding error. And so here you have King talking about 40 million people in poverty in 67. And here we are now in 2025, and there's still the number is still the same, Bosco. Essentially, about 40 million people living in poverty. How do you process that reality?
Well, I think it tells you something about the priorities of the United States, because and also our capital system, to be honest, because you saw during the early Biden administration, you saw with the extension of these COVID protections, with this cash assistance, with the expansion of the welfare state that we had in the United States during that period, you saw a dramatic reduction in poverty in the United States. You saw a reduction in hunger. You saw that how easy it was to solve a lot of our social problems. So again, I'm not saying you have to be a socialist like I am to just see that if the government prioritized the welfare of its citizens, then we'd be in a much better situation. But of course, the problem with the system giving that out is that the system knows that you need workers who are willing to work for low wages. You know, you need workers that feel the desperation of what's going to happen if they get unemployed to keep people meek and disciplined. And once people start to get that security, once they know they have that backstop, you know, they start to fight back. I think that's why austerity and capitalism are deeply, deeply connected. But I think at the very least, regardless of where you come from politically, I think we should accept the core insight that Dr. King had, which at a moral level, you know, we're all children of God, or if you're not religious, we're all children of the same humanity. And there's at the very least a bedrock of dignity that everyone's entitled to. And the United States is the richest society in human history, and it's very telling that we haven't been able to provide that for our most poor, our most marginalized communities.
King said it more times than I can count when you read his body of work. He laid repeatedly on this notion of what he called the triple threat, the three evils that were going to destroy this democracy, or this experiment in democracy, as I call it: racism, poverty, and militarism. There are your three: racism, poverty, and militarism. What is America still struggling with? 57 years after King's assassination: racism, poverty and militarism. That's why he wasn't a politician. He was a prophet, and is why I regard him as the greatest American this country has ever produced. Let me push forward. There's other news I want to cover from this week in this 1-hour conversation with Bhaskar Sankara of The Nation magazine, where he's president and founding editor of Jacobin magazine. So Cory Booker, I'm fascinated to get your take on this. I said I was on the air the day that Cory was doing his thing. I was on the air for the 18th, 19th, and 20th hours of his record-breaking Senate speech, right at 25 hours. Broke the record by Strom Thurmond of 24 hours and 18 minutes, as I recall. One of my guests said earlier this week, we're glad to see Strom Thurmond at least is off the record books. He doesn't have the record anymore. But now that speech is over, now that Cory, I guess, has gotten some sleep and gone to the bathroom, there are people now starting to dissect what that speech actually meant. What we make of it, whether the speech has any impact, what it means for Cory personally. Frank Luntz, Republican pollster, has now said publicly he believes it puts Cory at the front of the pack in 2028 for the presidency. I'm not sure it does all that, but that's what Frank Luntz said, and maybe that's what they want. Maybe they would love to have Cory Booker out front. I don't know. I'll let Bhaskar Sankara again sound off on all of this, but I'm specifically interested in this narrative that's starting to develop where we are talking about Cory Booker's progressive filibuster, but as juxtaposed against his more centrist voting record. I digress. Take it, Bhaskar Sankara.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like someone who's not appreciative at all of what Cory Booker did, and I don't want to sound like someone who doesn't see the resonance of him saying, breaking Thurmond's record and saying, I'm not here because of his speech, I'm here in spite of his speech. And there was a lot of powerful lines that Booker delivered, and I think it did remind people that there are some Democratic politicians that are willing to do what Chuck Schumer isn't, who's willing to really fight back and willing to at least make a clear moral stance about what's happening in this administration. So, of course, there was a lot of good in it. Now, that being said, Cory Booker has a long track record in public service. He's been around as a well-known public figure, as an elected official for 2 decades. And he started off as mayor of Newark. I think he got a lot of press attention. He was on the radio, he was on TV nationally all the time, and the big thing he was promoting at that time was charter schools and school privatization. And this was a moment when a lot of Democrats were embracing this really market-driven education reform model that was backed by a lot of billionaires. We're obviously responding to real problems in local school districts. But in the end, these efforts ultimately, I think, undermine public education as a whole, but really fail to improve educational outcomes. And there was a million other things in Newark that he failed to do at the level of affordability and helping poor and working class people in Newark. And I know that being mayor of a city, especially a city without a lot of wealth like Newark, is difficult. But I think you're seeing right now with the mayor of Newark, with Ras Baraka, you're seeing really good, effective, progressive governance. And I think the juxtaposition between Ras Baraka and what he's been able to do without getting the national spotlight, and Cory Booker's time as mayor, and while he was getting the national spotlight, is very telling.
You mentioned Mayor Baraka, Ras Baraka in Newark, the son of the great writer Amir Baraka. I'm looking at my schedule right quick. We just booked him on this program. Let me see if I can find it fast enough. The 14th, Monday, the 14th. That same Mayor Ras Baraka. That Bhaskar Sankara just references, is a guest on this program Monday the 14th. He's running for governor now in Cory's home state of New Jersey. So Mayor Baraka is stewarding the city of Newark at the moment, but running for governor in the state of New Jersey. So he will be our guest at the top of the show on Monday the 14th, and so I knew he was on the schedule somewhere, so I look forward to that conversation. I talked to him on the phone the other day, but he is our guest in a couple, I guess a week or two on this program, so I look forward to that. Speaking of futures, let me just throw two names at you right quick. You mentioned one already, and then let's get your take on their futures, and I got more stuff I want to cover with you when we come forward. You mentioned Chuck Schumer, so let me start there. What's your read of Chuck Schumer in this moment? There are Democrats increasingly calling for him to stand down. And when you saw Corey do what he did, whatever you think of it, and those moments he had where he had to essentially chin check Chuck Schumer, who wanted to yield back the time, and he said, "You can't yield the floor. I have the floor." And so that got a great laugh. But when you look at what Cory Booker did, it does put a different kind of spotlight on Chuck Schumer. That's a long way of getting to a simple question, which is this: what do you make of Chuck Schumer in this moment?
So before I get to that, I just one thing just popped in my head, which is at the beginning of the first Trump term, Cory Booker joined Senate Republicans to kill Bernie Sanders' effort to allow people to import cheaper medicine from Canada. You know, so I mean, it's not just his time as mayor. I think there's a lot of issues with his Senate record too. But you know, I think Schumer really, he's a bellwether, right? So there was a period during the Biden administration where he seemed to be, you know, friendly with parts of the left. He was friendly with Bernie and AOC. He was signaling support for all sorts of progressive policies, and it seemed like, okay, this guy's seeing which way the wind is blowing right now. I think he's just very committed at this moment to a policy of just letting Republicans bury themselves, and I think he feels like it's maybe a high risk, and this is the best faith reading I can think of. It's a high risk, potentially high reward strategy to be making big public spectacles and really fighting back against the Trump administration, risking government shutdowns and so on. And he feels that the best route is to, you know, let Trump do what he's going to do, let Trump do what he has a Democratic mandate to do at least, and let him suffer in the midterms, and Democrats are going to regain at least the you know, at least the House in the next year and a half. I think that's the strategy. I think the problem with it is it conveys to the American people that politicians are all the same and they don't care what happens, instead of conveying to the American people that actually one party's on your side and actually one party has an agenda that would actually help working-class Americans.
In 30 seconds, is Chuck Schumer the answer to the prayer in this moment? Is he the right guy in this moment to be leading Democrats in the Senate?
No, absolutely not. I think you could find, you know, out of the Democrats, you could find a dozen plus people who'd be better than Schumer at the moment. And this is a problem with the party. You know, they lose elections, but it seems like the leadership stays the same. You know, if we were in a parliamentary system, Chuck Schumer would have been out of his job already.
Yep. Again, no matter what you think of Corey's speech earlier this week, and you heard Bosker juxtapose his progressive filibuster with his more centrist voting record as a mayor and as a member of the United States Senate. Whatever you think of that speech, again, it puts a different spotlight, I think, on Chuck Schumer. You see Corey's eloquence. You see the fight back that Corey put forward, and you see Chuck Schumer, as Bosker said, just kind of sitting around waiting for Republicans to implode. You've heard me say on this program before, quoting those who talked to Chuck Schumer. He thinks Republicans are going to do themselves in. They're going to eventually kick Trump to the curb. They're going to abandon Donald Trump, and all's going to be well. The old GOP is going to show up again. That's what Chuck Schumer believes, and that's why Bosker's right that he ain't the answer to the prayer in this particular moment. He also mentions AOC. Let's talk about her future. A lot of people thinking and talking about AOC making a bid for the White House next time around. We'll talk about that. I ain't got to the Obama book yet, the book about Obama with Bosker. So a lot more to cover when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
Robinhood Gold members can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on annual retirement contributions. With Robinhood Gold, the perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive a 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. The State Attorney General's office is investigating Jackson, Mississippi Mayor Lumumba for potentially violating election laws by posting his speech on the city's website. The investigation was requested by the Secretary of State's office, and the city's communications director claims responsibility for the post. An 11-year-old in Iowa faces terrorism charges for making threats against a school. Although the threats were deemed not credible, the child was arrested, and security at Atlantic Community School will be increased this week. The University of Michigan Alumni Association will fund scholarships for over 300 University of Michigan students until they graduate after the Trump administration ended funding for underrepresented students and DEI programs. And Amazon has made a last-minute bid to buy TikTok before ByteDance's deadline to sell or face a U.S. ban. Lawmakers have security concerns over TikTok's connection to China. Oracle and Blackstone are also potential buyers. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Since the dawn of baseball, countless players have heard the call of destiny. Witness the heroes of the game in ballparks nationwide. Get your tickets today at MLB.com/tickets. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Los Angeles was the epicenter of women's college basketball this season, and the awards are rolling in. USC star Juju Watkins was voted the Naismith Player of the Year by a national panel of coaches and media. UCLA coach Corey Close is the Naismith Coach of the Year, and UCLA center Lauren Betts was voted Defensive Player of the Year. Watkins is a finalist for the Wooden Award, which also goes to the nation's top college basketball player. The sophomore from Compton led USC to a 30-3 season before suffering a knee injury in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Watkins finished the season averaging 23.9 points, 6.8 rebounds, and 3.4 assists. Close, in her 14th season at UCLA, led the Bruins to a 34-2 record and their first Final Four. Betts, a 6'7 junior from Centennial, Colorado, ranks 5th in the nation in block shots. She has 18 in the Bruins' last 5 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, and it's almost time to celebrate KBLA's 4th anniversary, coming up Juneteenth 2025. We'll be marking the achievement with 4 key community events, including a special symposium, luncheon, and brain trust hosted by me entitled The State of Black Women in Los Angeles. Keep it locked here for details on how to join us for this groundbreaking symposium examining the unique challenges, triumphs, and contributions of Black women in Los Angeles in the areas of education, healthcare, community leadership, cultural and political contributions. This public convocation will provide a critical forum to address the specific social, economic, and political realities facing Black women in LA today. We'll go live with a radio broadcast and YouTube live stream, a public discussion, and a private dialogue with some of LA's most impactful women. It's an affirmation of Black women standing at the intersection of race and gender in times of adversity while demonstrating remarkable resilience and leadership. We will listen and we will speak out and be heard, all in service of finding opportunities and solutions. Please plan to join us in celebrating our 4th anniversary by amplifying the voices of Black women. For more on our symposium and 4 events celebrating 4 years on the air, simply stay tuned or keep an eye on KBLA1580.com and help make this Juneteenth more jubilant with all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
This ad is brought to you by Care for the Injured, which is not a law firm. Past results don't guarantee future outcomes. Recovery depends on case details. Did you or a loved one take the birth control shot Depo-Provera and later develop a brain tumor? You are not alone. Thousands of women in the U.S. have been affected and deserve compensation. Depo-Provera, a widely used birth control injection, has been linked to serious brain tumors like meningiomas. If you use Depo-Provera for at least a year and were diagnosed with a brain tumor, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Our network of attorneys fight for the rights of women like you, women who were never warned about the risk of birth control shots. Our caring legal team is standing by to help you get the justice and compensation you deserve. The sooner you call, the sooner we can begin working on your case. Call 800-256-1276 now for a free confidential case review. That's 800-256-1276. Call 800-256-1276.
And the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and Bhaskar Sankar, who's president of The Nation magazine and founding editor of Jacobin magazine. Delighted to have him back on this program. We were talking moments ago about Chuck Schumer, and both of us agree, and as do many others, that Chuck Schumer is not the right guy in this moment to be leading Democrats in the Senate. There are any number of people in the Senate who could do a much better job than I think Chuck Schumer is doing, and Cory Booker put himself in the center of every conversation with that 25-hour record-breaking speech earlier this week. There are those like Frank Luntz, Republican pollster, who believe that that speech, that 25-hour speech, has pushed Cory Booker to the front of the Democratic race. I think that's putting too much on it, Bhaskar. Before I ask you about AOC, am I right? Is Frank Luntz putting too much on it?
Yeah, I think that we're so far away from selecting a nominee. I think Cory Booker obviously sees himself as a national figure, a national politician, which means he's going to be competitive. And honestly, when he's good, he's good. You know, he's very charismatic at times. I urge people to look up the speech he made, I believe, to the Teamsters when he was just early in his Senate career. But you heard him actually sound like a working-class populist, which he's not, by the way. But he's able to turn it on. He has rhetorical gifts. And honestly, he's not a great Democrat in my mind. I think we have many better more progressive options. But after 4 years of Donald Trump, Cory Booker might look pretty good.
Yeah, of course, he ran before when Kamala Harris ran for president, and they didn't make it. And, of course, Joe Biden becomes the president, picks Kamala Harris as his running mate. We'll talk about that in this new book out that talks about Barack Obama and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi. We'll get to that in a few minutes here with Bhaskar Sankara. But we talked about Chuck Schumer a moment ago. Now I want to talk about another personality, AOC. So there's some big questions surrounding AOC as progressives ponder the future of progressivism. She and Bernie Sanders, of course, have been out on this anti-oligarchy tour, but that name, AOC, is being raised more and more these days as progressives, again, try to figure out what they think the answer to the prayer is. What say you about the future of one AOC?
Well, I think AOC has made a remarkable turn as a politician in the last couple of years, particularly in the last 6 months or so since the election, in that she really is trying to figure out where your average American voter is and trying to move them over to see the value in progressive economic policies. So right after the election, she arranged the series of chats and did outreach with members of her constituents who voted for both her but voted for Trump. And that's a demographic that was way larger than you would have guessed, the kind of AOC and Trump demographic. So trying to really understand her constituents. Her and Bernie are doing these events out in the Midwest, out in a series of different places. I think they have an event planned even in Idaho coming up. So really trying to get to areas the Democrats have been ignoring, and to figure out how to bridge divide. So I think that's very impressive. Where I'm going to sound a little bit too pessimistic is that I think partially this is her fault, and partially this is society's fault. But I think she is coded as being a New York liberal with cultural values that aren't mainstream. Mm-hmm. I think that's her coding. Mm-hmm. I think some of this was maybe in her early first couple years in office when she would give speeches, she would sometimes, sound like she was invoking academic theories of intersectionality. Like she was not, I think, she didn't really have the command she has now of crowds and of rhetoric. And then, of course, there's obvious racism and sexism and how people interpret what she's advocating for and what she says. So I'm not positive that she has the reach to be a really competitive national political figure. And I say that very hesitantly, but I want to be honest there because, first of all, AOC is the best ambassador we have, short of Bernie Sanders, of the type of politics that I hold. So I don't say that with glee, but I say it as this is a problem. Can we solve it?
Yep. You've answered this to some degree already, but I want to just ask it to put a finer point on it. Given that she is the best answer, the best replacement, the best stand-in for Bernie Sanders that progressives have right now, what do you see as the primary difference? Again, you've already answered some of this, between her and Bernie. Like, why could she not do on the campaign trail what Bernie almost pulled off? Why could she not do it?
Well, I think Bernie Sanders took a lot of time to develop the rhetoric that he has. He spent time in Vermont. He had all sorts of heterodox views for the progressive left, at least, where he would say, of course I support immigration, but I think we need to have a strong border. He would say that, obviously I support Second Amendment rights and even, but we need to, have limits and restrictions. He would say things like this that I think were really rooted in his time campaigning in places like the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. And people forget, but back in the 80s, Vermont was quite a Republican, state in many ways. Mm-hmm. And the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont is a very working-class, rural area. And Bernie was able to, I think, craft an appeal as this Jewish socialist from New York. He was able to figure out how to reach these voters and have them really, really trust him. Mm-hmm. AOC was running in districts that were deep blue. And I think in this environment where she's running in districts that are deep blue, she's very connected to this activist base that got her elected. I think it maybe led her to rhetoric and to some stances that didn't have the same broad-based appeal, or really appealed mostly to younger people like myself, or people who are already progressive like myself. Yeah. So I should say, I really have appreciated everything AOC has done since she's been in office, but I'm just trying to get at this, what makes them different as far as national appeal. Yeah. But I do think AOC is, she's maturing as a politician. She's really figuring out that this question is how we win over voters across the United States, including in these semi-rural and rural districts and areas, and Democrats are getting killed there. They don't need to win them, but they need to be more competitive if the Senate's gonna ever, if we have a chance at least of 60 Democratic Party votes in the Senate again. And I think this is where I do think she has the potential to replace Schumer as New York State Senator, and I think that should be her next route. And I think Bernie is setting her up for this tour as being the replacement to Bernie in the Senate, and in national politics, I should say, in Congress more broadly. Not that Bernie is showing any signs of slowing down, but I think this is what this tour in part is about. It seems like the passing of a torch to some degree.
Yep. I want to read two quotes from a Politico story, then I want to read a quote from a story in The Nation magazine, Bosca's publication, and when we come forward, I'll let him respond to the latter. I'm quoting now from two different people inside of AOC's camp. The only way she ends up running is if things continue the way they're going, where it's just going down this dark path and no one really steps up. And she kind of gets pressured into it, like she just feels it's her moral obligation to do it, close quote. That is her moral obligation to run. That's from one insider in AOC's camp. A second person said the following, which is a really fascinating quote. You have to listen carefully to get it. She's more not focused on running for president than she is uninterested in it. She's more not focused on running for president than she is uninterested in it. It's a great quote, whoever said that. We don't know their name. They were anonymous, but there are two insiders talking about the future of AOC as progressives try to figure out what their next play is a few years from now, knowing that Bernie Sanders will not be the standard bearer then. And you heard Bosca say he believes, and many others believe, that Bernie is setting up AOC to be the next Bernie Sanders in the Senate if she can, if Chuck Schumer steps aside or if she decides to challenge Chuck Schumer for that Senate seat. We will see in the days ahead, the months ahead, the years ahead, about the future of one AOC. Now, let me quote from The Nation magazine, where Bhaskar Sankara is president, and let him respond to this when we come forward. There's a piece that I read in The Nation, the headline, Black MAGA supporters have made their peace with racist. Black MAGA supporters have made their peace with racists. Here's a quote from that story. The silence of Black MAGA supporters in the face of Trump's and Vance's bigotry during the campaign has now carried over to the second Trump era. Now that he's president again, their voices are being quelled as his white power autocratic government takes shape, close quote. Why are these black folk, these black MAGA supporters of Donald Trump? It's one thing they've been quiet then. Now they see how he's showing up, and they remain quiet. Why? We'll talk about that with the president of The Nation magazine, Bhaskar Sankara, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
People just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check that your seats aren't in the visitor section first, before buying tickets.
I'm so excited for this game. I can't believe you got us tickets.
Me too. Wait, are we on the wrong side?
Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds.
This is going to be a long game.
You're in good hands with Allstate.
Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
As a fan, you know all the important sports cliches. And when you save money by bundling your home and auto with Progressive, you can get out there and give it 110%, even though that's mathematically impossible. And remember, failure is not an option. Well, it's always an option, just not a good one. But you're not worried because you've got ice in your veins. You're on fire. How can both of those things be true at the same time? Well, that's between you and your doctor. So get out there and leave it all on the field. Leave what? Who cares? Just leave it and save with a bundle from Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Before the fire, Altadena was a real-life Wakanda. A thriving black oasis just 15 miles from downtown Los Angeles. 80% black residents were homeowners, building intergenerational wealth against the odds. It was a hub of black-owned businesses, churches, and cultural institutions. It stood as a symbol of black resilience and economic independence. Then, in a matter of hours, it was gone. The fire tore through homes, swallowed businesses, and left behind a painful void. But was it just an unstoppable act of nature, or was negligence involved? Did officials ignore early warning signs? Were the response efforts delayed or insufficient? What role, if any, did corporate or government failures play? Survivors are demanding answers. Don't miss our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall. The Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting. On Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, 1081 North Fair Oaks in Pasadena. Join Dominic DePrima, Nee Cordelai Corte, James Farr, Tavis Smiley, and a panel of survivors, community leaders, and experts as we commemorate Day 100 since the wildfires flared up. And we discuss where we go from here. It's KBLA's Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting Town Hall. Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center in Pasadena. Light refreshments to follow. Admission is free, but sign-up is required at our KBLA1580.com website. This is a community call to action brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
The silence of black MAGA supporters in the face of Trump's and Vance's bigotry during the campaign has carried over to the second Trump era. Now that he's president again, their voices are being quelled as his white power autocratic government takes shape. Tell me more, Bhaskar Sankara. This piece is in your magazine, The Nation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, when we're thinking about Trump's support in a segment of, minority communities of all types, but let's say black Americans, I think we need to, in good faith, engage with these people. I don't think we could start at the level of moral condemnation, to be honest, or say that people are racist adjacent or made peace with racism, because I do think there is a world in which if Trump wasn't so racist, he would win over a lot more black and brown men, especially, because I think a lot of people are feeling the squeeze in this economy. And if a right populist comes around and says, actually, you're feeling the squeeze because there's all this immigrant labor in, and you already have citizenships, In the case of Black Americans, you've been in this country creating wealth for this country for generations, and now you're getting squeezed by immigrants. I mean, this is a very powerful rhetoric to divide the working class, and I think we need a response to it. I think we need to tell people that actually we do have a plan that will give people more economic security and prosperity and allow them to take care of themselves and their families. And I do think that this economic component of why so many people decided that the Biden years wasn't working for them and they wanted something different is much more important than the cultural component. So I actually didn't read the article that you mentioned. You know, The Nation, we publish 7-8 pieces a day. I think I get to about 3 of them. But so you know, I'm not saying it's in contradiction necessarily what the author is saying, but I do think this emphasis is really important. Starting from a point, I know all of us and all of your listeners have friends or family that might be, you know, might have voted for Trump or might be leaning in that direction. You know, starting from a point of understanding and empathy and really providing an alternative is where we should start, rather than kind of condemning people or saying that they've made their peace with what's wrong in American society. Because I think a lot of them can see that Trump is racist. They can see that there's all these problems. He's an immoral man. You know, we know all these things about Trump, but they really voted because they wanted a change. They wanted an alternative in their lives and in the country.
Well, the writer of this piece, Clarence Lusane, may or may not be right about the fact that they've made peace with racists. That is a strong claim. But he is right about the fact that they've been eerily silent. Not unlike Barack Obama in this particular moment, as Michael Eric Dyson told us in our first hour. These black MAGA supporters have been eerily silent about that. Mr. Lusane is absolutely on point. In our remaining moments with Bhaskar Sankara, I want to get his take on this new book, Fight, Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, written by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. They have uncovered research that suggests that Barack Obama was working assiduously and aggressively behind the scenes to make sure that Kamala Harris would not be the nominee, even though Obama did in fact believe that Joe Biden needed to stand down. He was not the answer to the prayer at that moment either. So it was off with both of their heads, essentially, off with Biden's head, off with Harris's head. And the Biden, this book tells us that the Biden aides were actually arguing that forcing him to drop out would bring the mistake, that's their word in this book, the mistake of Harris. These are Biden's aides telling donors that if they force Biden to drop out, you're going to be stuck with the mistake of Kamala Harris. We'll let Bhaskar Sankara respond to that in our remaining moments when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Progressive knows owning a home can be hard, but not always. Like when you're relaxing on your patio, enjoying a nice, quiet evening. So quiet. Except for the sound of the neighbor's party. Which you said you'd go to if you weren't busy. And your quiet night on the patio, that's not exactly busy, is it? Maybe you should just stay inside. At least Progressive's Home Quote Explorer lets you easily compare rates, so shopping for insurance is the easiest part of owning a home. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2024, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Your paycheck and bank accounts are at risk of being seized. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your options, and it's free. If you owe back taxes, have years of unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better, business or personal, call the experts at Republic Tax Relief while there's still time. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. The call is free. Call their hotline number now, 800-246-1923. That's 800-246-1923. Find out if you qualify today. Call 800-246-1923 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
I got 3 minutes left here with Bhaskar Sankar, president of the Nation magazine, founding editor of Jacobin magazine. This new book, Fight, Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, everybody's talking about it today, and so are we, argues a number of things, not the least of which is that Barack Obama was working aggressively and assiduously behind the scenes to make sure that Joe Biden was not going to be the nominee, but he also felt the same way about Kamala Harris. Offered both of their heads, as I said earlier, and we learned from this book that Biden's aides were arguing to donors, Bhaskar, that dropping him, forcing him to drop out, would leave them with the mistake, in air quotes, not air quotes, those are real quotes, leave Democrats with the mistake of Kamala Harris. There'll be a lot of people talking about this in the days ahead. What are your initial thoughts about what these reporters have revealed?
Well, I think that Kamala Harris could have won this election if she had run a more populist campaign and a campaign that distanced herself from part of the Biden administration. Instead, she was forced to run a campaign that was deeply tied to the Biden administration. And even though she started off with quite populist notes, she was, I believe, under the influence of oligarchs like Mark Cuban, of people like the Uber CEO and her brother-in-law, Tony West. I think she was under the influence of a lot of the people that are close friends with Barack Obama. You know, she didn't have the political talents of a Barack Obama, but Barack Obama, we have to remember, you know, what has he done in his post-presidency? Well, he's not building homes, Habitat for Humanity like Jimmy Carter. He's amassing, millions of dollars through, his Netflix deal, through speaking fees from Wall Street and corporate interests. And I think about the attacks that you and Dr. West got for, your anti-poverty talks and for your criticisms of the Obama administration. I just think about the difference between, public intellectuals who spend their time talking about issues of moral import that's not going to get them rich. And I think about Barack Obama getting, I think he got $400,000, correct me if I'm wrong, to do that speech in 2017, right after Trump got elected on an economic populist platform to Cantor Fitzgerald. So I just think about the waste of his talent. And Tavis, you grew up in Indiana, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It seems like it was 50 generations ago, not, within our generation, that Barack Obama managed, with his talents and his ability and all the hope inspired by his campaign, to win the state of Indiana in 2008.
That's correct.
Think about how far we came from that. And so to me, Barack Obama is just the ultimate waste of political talent, because he really could have been a transformational president, our greatest president. I think he settled for being, better than what came before and came after him, but that's it.
Yeah. He was not transformational. He was, at best, transactional. Not transformational, at best, transactional. It's going to be fascinating to see how Barack Obama responds to this in the days ahead. I can't wait to hear what he says about these revelations in this book. We shall see. For now, we thank Bhaskar Sankar, president of the Nation magazine, founding editor of Jacobin magazine. Always delighted to have you on this program, Bhaskar. Thank you once again, sir, for your insights. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
When we come forward in our third and final hour today, we will talk with Paul Kix, author Paul Kix, and Sarah Collins Rudolph, who survived that bombing in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Arrested by the Secretary of State's office, and the city's communications director claims responsibility for the post. An 11